Count it. All right, Jackson Hightower, thank you for being on Unscripted Intimacy. I'm so excited to have this conversation.
Yes.
I was thinking about this, and I feel like the universe has just given you a big green light. And it feels like to me that there has got to be so many people ready to hear your message. You say on your website you've got that you're rewriting the rules of sex, health, and human connection. I'm really excited to dive into the fact that this is so incredibly valuable, and we're not just talking about sex, right? We're not just talking about some of the things that, maybe on the surface it sounds like. It is a entire focus on health and connection and communication and exploration, and really it's an overall, I would say, lifestyle in a really big way. Tell me a little bit about your story. Give us a little bit of how did you get here, and the courage that it really takes to be this bold in this area, I think is a huge part of that green light that I feel like you're getting. So give us a little bit of your story.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I'm very excited to be here too. Um, I believe that, you know, everyone in life has some sort of purpose, right? And like the whole point of being a human is that we have universal energy flowing through us so that we can be the most activated, right? Some people do that through sports, some people do that through teaching, some people do that through being a mom, some people do that through whatever it is that they do really well, right? It's taken me a bit, right, about 38 years or so to really figure out what that is for me.
Mm.
But like my whole story really originates with high drive, high discipline, always being focused on sports and athletics and school and grades and being good at sort of following masters and learning from masters.
Mm.
And I was a black belt when I was 7.5 years old. I did taekwondo for 2 or 3 hours a day for 4.5 years, starting at the age of
Wow.
4. So like I have a lot of that precocious, like driven capacity in
Yeah.
me. I'd always learn from masters. I'd always train from masters. The origin story for me was really when I was in college and I was, being intimate, first time away from home and being intimate with, older women and really getting kind of like a knock on the side of the head, like a bit of an ego, hit was that like this is one area of my life that I didn't really have down pat. I never studied it. I never learned it, right? So
Yeah.
being good at sports, being at the top of your class, playing at a Division I college, getting great grades, all of that sort of stuff, you learn those things and you can get through. But the other
Yeah.
stuff, the erotic art skills and the sensual skills and all of that, you're not taught. We are not taught in our culture.
No.
And because we are not taught that, most people go down a path of learning through watching porn. Sorry, for social media, I use the
Yeah.
word porn. They watch porn,
Yeah.
they learn all the wrong moves, and it fries their brains. But my experience of wanting to be a good lover was that I didn't have to ever hear that feedback again when I was in college. I didn't want to hear that feedback again. It's like, but you don't really know what you're doing, and like this isn't enjoyable for me, and that sort of thing. So it's like, well, where do you turn? What do you do? How do you go from there, right? Because this is early 2000s. There isn't
Yes.
Facebook just launched. There's no Instagram. There's no social media. There's no TikTok. None of these
Yeah.
platforms exist.
Yeah.
So I practiced and studied and learned on the side of my professional life for about 15 or so years. Right? I
Mm.
went to workshops, retreats. I was a voracious student and a reader because I wanted to get better. I wanted to improve. I wanted to learn. I wanted to have better experiences. And then, the universe kind of pointed me in the direction of let's do this more professionally. Let's do this so you can be in service to humanity.
Mm.
Let's share messages that help reframe the experience for men and for women in their intimate lives. But as you said, it expands way beyond just that.
Way beyond. Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's
Well,
it's it's health. It's
yes.
physical health. Um,
It's the entire experience, right? It's in the present moment. It's your entire life force energy, your confidence. It's how you're interacting with this life that we're in, right? So I love that you bring up first and foremost that you were always taught by coaches and mentors, and you just recently launched an app that is, I think, to your point, the resources are so limited for people. And what I love about the idea of an app is we are talking about something that not everybody is that comfortable talking about, right? Or has even the language, or even, again, where to even start. And so being able to download this app and being able to tap into the amount of value that's right at your fingertips, right, is everybody should be downloading it. And so in this, like, tell me a little bit about the process of getting into your app, and how do you walk people through this? What is the also the target person is going to download this, right? I want to say everybody should, but at the same time, we know that not everybody will, right? Not everybody hires a coach. Not everybody, they should. You know, not everybody wants to live in that top 1 or 2% that you're talking about, right? Nobody wants to, some people don't want to perform those things, but give me an idea of who your ideal person listening to this, like, so it triggers like, hey, this is for me, and then kind of some of the process in that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The main objective for the app was to utilize the technology that we have right now available for us to create actionable, demonstrative, gamified experiences for men to support their sexual health and wellness. And I'll go back a little bit. Like, watching a course is great. I do a lot of that, right? You can watch a course. A lot of people don't watch courses, or they watch it once and it gets thrown by the wayside. The app, the whole vision for this was like, I know that when I was doing my courses, guys would watch it, but there wasn't that ability to keep them engaged in a way by doing exercises, by doing breath work, by doing meditations, by doing dopamine boosting activities, by having the gamification of the technology that we have available to us today. We can do this. And instead of the one-off apps that do all these little different things, there's a Kegels app, there's a Quit Porn app, there's this Positions app. I basically was like, well, why don't we put it all in one place?
Nice.
I want men to go to one place, right? So men 18 to 45 years old and up, but like, it's really geared towards men who are wanting to get a better handle on their sexual health, right? To track these things better, but also to have an experience where there are streaks, there's a gamified piece, there's leaderboards, where you should be doing this stuff every day. So the whole point of the app is like, it's like a Whoop. It's not something that you just use once. It's something that, like, we actually want you to engage, put information in regularly. We want to know, what is your release schedule as a man? And are you doing it too often? And are you losing your power? This app is going to track that through this gamified module. So it's really like a one-stop shop. Plus, you get all the courses and the knowledge and all that sort of stuff on the side, which is great.
Yeah.
But it's this piece of like, I want to learn positions. It's for the guy that wants to alleviate erectile dysfunction. It's for the guy that wants to learn how to last longer in bed. It's for the guy that wants to quit porn using science-backed protocols for boosting dopamine, not just trying harder.
Yeah.
It's for the guy that's, releasing too much. It's for the guy that wants to get better hip mobility and sexual fitness, right? So it's basically all of these things in one place.
Beautiful. I start off by talking about, again, this coaching idea and having it all in one place. And the idea of going through a course and knowing something intellectually is totally different than embodying, right? And the practice part of it, right? We know that, and yet we're safer sometimes. We think we're safer by just gathering some of the information, watching some of your content on Instagram or whatever it is. And it's like, oh yeah, you're giving out such valuable content. And we know that in order to really master or do anything, it is that daily practice that you're talking about, right? It is that whole body experience. It's not just the intellectual knowledge of that. And I think, isn't that what porn does? That's a huge part. Let's move into again, how would somebody know? Again, you had the beautiful gift of somebody giving you feedback. Not easy, right? But you did get that jolt of, I'm going to give you feedback in this. And it's interesting how many people are pretending or don't even realize that there is these problems, right? Like, it's like, I want to really get to the person that doesn't know anything different, right? They're watching porn, they think they're good in bed, they're in their marriage, whatever it is, and they're like, this isn't necessarily for me. I really want to get to that person and say, okay, you don't know what you don't know. And what are those triggers that says, like, why would I download this app? And really start to focus on this. And you mentioned in some of your content, I'll see if this wraps this or kind of puts this in a question. You mentioned in your content that there is a reason why this is your number one focus. right? And some people be like, is he a sex addict, or is he like, it's just like whatever it is. It's like, no, here's why this is my number one focus. Here's why this is so valuable, because it touches everything in my life. So talk a little bit about the benefit of why going down this road is so valuable, even though you may think that you have it all figured out because you don't know what you don't know. What is it that you're really sharing with people that they don't know?
Yeah. Men are slaves to their sexual energy.
Nice.
We're slaves to the lust. We're slaves to porn. We're slaves to the release. We're slaves to, this visual sort of digital response, right? And when we cannot control our sexual energy, when we don't own it and run it, and it owns and runs us, that's where all the problems start. Get a lot of you touch on a couple points in there, but when a man doesn't have control and understanding of how vital that energy is, that is not just important for procreation. Sure.
Yeah.
It's important for intimate relationships with a partner. It's important for understanding the self and alignment with the self. It's important for creative endeavors in life. It is creative life force energy, right? And when someone understands that it's not just, oh, it's a bunch of fluid that comes out to have a kid, it's actually your will, your drive, your desire to live in life. And the more you can cultivate and understand that energy, the better you're going to be in all aspects of your life. So when people ask me, oh, why do you focus on this so much? It's because it's the foundation of everything that a man exists upon, right? And so if I don't have elite sexual health and wellness, which means that my body is performing as it should, my circulatory system is responding on point, my testosterone levels are high, my sperm quality is great for reproduction, right? I'm not releasing too much of that energy and expending all of that that life force energy on things that are not important. It's about discipline, right? So it's your foundation for sexual health, for general health, for your creative life endeavors, for discipline. All of that stuff is what makes people successful in life. And so if you are a man who has leaky sexual energy, jacking off to porn 3 or 4 times a day, not taking care of that energy, not being intimate in a real connected way with a partner, are you at the highest level of your capacity as a man? The answer is no. You're not. And that's why I focus on this so much, is because it's the foundation. And so guys come to me, I want to learn this technique, I want to learn that technique, I want to learn that. And they think that it's about that.
Yeah.
And it's never about that, right?
No.
And we always start with who are you as a man? What are your values? What do you embody as a man, right? What are your opinions? What are your thoughts? What are the most important things to you as a man? And then that cultivation of that energy starts. And then we start dialing into what is your own connection with your sexual energy. If you have a leaky energy with a partner, I'm sure you've experienced this with the people that you work with, the clients.
Yep.
If you have leaky sexual energy internally as a man, how are you going to have a positive, healthy relationship sexually with your partner? I don't think that it's possible. So that's why porn is obviously the biggest detriment to that, is because it's teaching them all the wrong moves, and it's also frying their hormones, right? And by watching other people, have sex, and their dopamine gets all skewed up. So we focus on who are you as a man? Stop watching porn, right? And then the other stuff slowly fades away. The ED goes away. The premature ejaculation goes away. The performance anxiety goes away. The issues with insecurities about size goes away. And then you can get more confident. And then you can get into the techniques and the positions and all the other stuff. But that's where we start.
How much shame and a lot of culture, religious, there's a lot of shame that goes into what your body is capable of, what that energy is. And to your point, it's it can be very leaky, and it can be you yourself could be very hidden in those spaces. What do you see happening with men when they start to really own this space, or come out of this hiding, or come out of this shame? What do you see, any patterns in that?
Well, when a man really starts to look into the foundational elements of his own connection with his sexual energy, when he's able to tap into it and recognize and hit rock bottom, the biggest issue that men have is that they don't have the ability to actually say, oh my God, I have a problem.
Yeah, exactly.
Problem aware. Are you problem aware? And I'm going to say this loud and clear. The vast majority of men are still very wrapped up in their egos, and they don't acknowledge the fact that they know very little about this stuff.
Yes.
They were never taught it, right?
Yeah.
And so I encourage men, it's look, Take it from me. I'm the one that's up on the rooftop shouting about this stuff because I went through the training and the protocol. But if you don't have the capacity to really look at yourself and say, you know what, I probably don't know as much about this stuff as I should. I'm
Yeah.
probably not as much of the man as I think that I am, and get the ego out of the way, then they
Yeah.
can actually step into a place of like openness, tabula rasa, like clean slate, right?
Yeah.
Where does a man have the ability to come into a space, and maybe he's a boy, maybe he's a late teenager, maybe he's in his early 20s, but
Yeah.
like, hey, I don't know a lot of stuff and I'm willing to learn. If more men had that approach, we would be in a much, much, much different situation right now.
Yeah.
And so my
Yeah.
whole goal for this platform is like share as much as I can to get as many men on board while also inspiring obviously the women, right? And like we can discuss the like who follows me and why.
Yeah.
But when a man is able to realize this and hit rock bottom, then his whole world opens.
Yeah.
Because then he's like, I don't have to worry about like the ego of needing to be so good at this, whatever. I may not know about what I'm doing, and that's okay. And I'm going to
Yeah.
learn, and you can learn from me and other people in the space, right, to get better, right?
Yeah.
So but they have to hit the place of I know that I don't know.
Yeah.
And if a man can't get there, he's going to be stuck in the, well, I got this, you know. And the
Yeah.
reality is like, you know, look at the orgasm gap. Look at all these different things that happen. Look how much porn is watched. Look how much digital desire and digital arousal is cultivated on the internet.
Yeah.
Like, you have to recognize these things and realize that you have to break your patterns as a man. And you have to recognize that you don't actually know what the fuck you're doing. And that's why there's so much disparity in the delta between the experience of women and the experience of men, specifically in the bedroom, but also like relationally.
I was gonna say it goes everywhere. I work with so many couples, and sometimes they don't, it takes a while for them to get in this conversation. They want to talk about all the other stuff on the surface that's happening day to day or whatever it is. And they'll say to me, I'll start to edge into that space, and I have to laugh to myself because I'm like, if you don't think I don't know what your sex life is like, I do, right? Because the same way you're doing everything else is the results that you're bringing that, you're not changing any of your actual patterns. That's how you're doing life in a very big way. I love that if we were to talk to the egos though, right? If we were to say, okay, if your ego's coming out to play and you're having a hard time feeling this, what do you say to the ego when you're saying, like, you're being controlled? You're not actually powerful as you think you are, right? If you're learning from, if your only education has been porn, right? And that is a market that we know is capitalizing on this addiction and all of these things, right? Like, if we're talking to the ego, what do you say when you realize that you can be more powerful, right? You can, like, whatever the ego's wanting, right? You can be more valuable, you can be more powerful, you can actually be more whatever it is, right? Like, I can talk to your ego just as much, but to your point, there's going to have to come a point where you open and actually are ready to learn.
Yeah. I usually, I say like, look, the basis for my platform is there is another way, right? And there is an opportunity to grow. And it's not for every man. Some guys will never be open-minded to the fact that like they have issues.
Yeah.
But like if someone is willing to talk about this stuff and share a different path in a different way, my hope is that I can spurn one idea of a guy. Oh, interesting. I never thought about that. Let me try that.
Yeah.
Right? That's all it is. And it's just the domino effect of like how many men can I touch globally, right?
Yeah.
Across all platforms. That's the beauty of social media is that I can talk to anybody in the world, India, Philippines, Australia, wherever, right? Anyone who's like tuning in, and say like, look, it's okay.
Yeah.
And you're okay. And you don't need to be an expert at this without learning about it. And there are paths for you. And so I invite them and I'm like, look, if I can sit up here and talk about all of the issues and struggles and challenges that I've had, can you at least acknowledge that like maybe I can learn something about this stuff too?
I love the idea. I use this analogy a lot, and that is that, like, if you picture two 6-year-old kids, right? You've got the female and you've got the male, and all you have to do is really look at what's happening in their wiring, right? Because we're almost completely wired, 90% wired by the time we're like 6. So the idea is that men, what is it that they're doing, right? They're playing sports. They're, maybe they've picked up on some different things. But if you watch women, right, we're most girls at that age are playing house, and they're in their imagination, and they're starting to create all these narratives, right, in their mind. They get married or they get in partnership, and they are on two different planets in a big way, right? Because there is this idea of like, if women are controlling the narrative, right, they're like, okay, this is the part I want you to play. They're in their imagination. They're using a lot of that, that side of their brain. I get couples in here, and men especially, they're so confused by why women are not satisfied, why they're, what role are they supposed to play when, they're not taught any of those things. So I love, you have a clip in your social media that talks about, men being really straightforward and just being like, hey, do you want this? Do you want that? Like, and women, to your credit, you're really starting to educate so many people on the idea of, I just want to say it's like really good brain health, mental health. It's good IQ to just be able to have a vocabulary that expands beyond just that, like, that direct part of that. So when you talk about imagination, and we're looking at women and men, and I want to really move into this space of like, I ask men, like, have you watched any chick flicks? Have you read any books? Do you have any context at all of where women are, because women will read about it all day long in detail, right? Like, we'll just be like, okay, there's like, and our brains kind of do that. So as you're teaching men, talk a little bit about the imagination part of connecting with a woman in this space, because they're at a severe disadvantage when they don't have any context here.
Yeah, you're right. Men and women speak different languages. Men and women also have very different operating systems. So this notion that like men and women are equal or not equal. We process things differently. We think about things differently. We have very different emotional capacities. Females have significantly higher capacities to feel and empathy and compassion than most men do, because we operate from different structures for the most part. So when there's an education piece that comes with it, which is like when you speak to a man, you have to understand that like there's like a translator, right? And like that translator is, I can say this how I would say it normally, and I can also say this how a woman is going to understand me much better, right? And so, for oh, there we go. Is this better?
Yeah.
Sound wise? Okay. So when a man is in an environment with a woman and he is operating like the woman is the same as him, that is going to be the worst case scenario, right? Because she doesn't necessarily, she wants directness, but then sometimes she doesn't. Sometimes there needs to be, the discovery of the other senses, right? The emotional connection. Like you have to hit all of the little buttons, right? That get a woman into this, I call it like responsive desire. So like men visually see a cue and they're excited, right? Yeah. But like that's not how women operate. So if a man thinks that that's how women operate, he's always going to be at a disadvantage. But if he understands that he has to touch upon the other senses, the feelings of security, emotional connection, throughout the day or week or whatever it is that their cadence of communication is, they have to engage differently. So part of what I share with men is like, hey, let's just start with like, can you go slower? Can you understand that women need more time than you, right? And so it's this whole retraining. And the issue with porn is that we view it, right? And we see this like this peak experience is the fact I go fast, I go hard. This is what the experience is like. The woman's enjoying it, etc.
Yep.
None of that is true, and so it reinforces this really bad habit. Porn is the worst thing that has ever happened to mankind, without question. There is zero doubt about it, and I would debate anybody who has another idea about what's the worst thing that's ever happened to mankind. But I know for a fact that it is porn. Because men aren't able to understand these things until they get into a relational capacity, and then they're like thrown for a loop. Well, what, she doesn't like this, or this doesn't turn her on, or I thought that this was the thing, or doing all these moves and blah, blah, blah. It's not about that. It's not about the techniques and the moves. At the advanced levels it is. It's about presence and connection. Can you hear with me?
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Or are you just trying to like do a move that you saw on TV in a movie, right? So that's the biggest shift that I find that helps men is understanding like, hey, when you're in that experience, you kind of have to have that moment of, okay, well, is this what I would like, or is this what a woman might like?
Yeah.
And recognizing that we're all different and that we do have different needs.
How do you address and maybe you don't, the idea of giving a woman something or performing or figuring out, like, because as a woman it is my responsibility to understand my body, to understand like it, and any kind of orgasm or any kind of pleasure is going to come from within, right? So I have to be the one that ignites that. Do you find that the performance idea, right, like again, here's the moves, here's the things that you have to do, instead of really being honest, right? Like, where do you start to like add that in, right? It's like, here's how you're supposed to be as a man, versus here's what's honest and real and true. If you drop in, women can really detect that really fast, right? It's like, and well, let's go there first, right? Like the idea of performance versus honesty, or presence versus being in our head or being in performance based. How do you address that?
It's tricky, and I'll tell you why. We as men generally are the ones that are leading the sexual experience and guiding the sexual experience. We as men, I believe, have a I believe we have more to do in the sexual experience. We also have to make sure that we're aroused, that our penis stays hard, that we kind of know how to navigate. So there's an element of, we're always going to sort of be a little bit in our heads. We're listening, we're tuning in, we're trying to figure out, like, okay, does this work? Like, are her nipples hard? Is she blushing? Is her skin red? Like, is she perspiring? Like, there's an element where we are in our heads.
Okay.
Right?
So there is a strategy that's still available.
Yeah, it's always there. And the more you practice, the more it becomes ingrained and it becomes embodied, right? But that when you first start out, it's like, oh, what do I do? Like, how do I do this? Like, where am I touching her? Like, does she like this? Like, there's a lot of things that are in our heads. So as men, we can't necessarily get around that all that quickly. But at the same time, if we've only ever learned how to do these things from watching performances, which are the movies, which are porn,
Exactly.
then we are not actually engaging with our bodies, right?
Yeah.
And so as a man, if you're super analytical and you're in your head or whatever it is, and you don't actually have the ability to take that energy down, right? And is that a woo-woo concept? No. It's just like,
No.
can you be in your body during this
Yeah.
experience, as opposed to like, well, what is she going to want? Da, 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 da. Like, you got to feel it. Breathing, obviously, is like one of the best ways that you can do that, and deep diaphragmatic breathing to calm your nervous system, to create the aura of like calm, confidence, presence, right? But if we're so
Which again
focused
touches
on,
everything in life, right? It's like what you're practicing here is exactly the tools and the ideas of how you're going to be successful and perform, but experience life.
Well, I mean, the word perform is tough because, like,
It is.
we talk about sexual performance and sexual function. I mean, there is an element of, your body needs to perform, meaning like it needs to be in a state of functioning properly. And you need to guide the experience through actions, which, could be considered performances. But the moment that you actually lose connection with the other person, because this is a dance, there's two people involved here, right? Yep. Not just like, oh, I'm going to do these things because I saw it on TV and that girl liked it, or I saw it on my, on the hub and that girl liked it. Like, there's an element of like, how about you slow down and you actually pay attention to what that person is actually giving you feedback, right? So it's listening. That's what I find for men is that, like, the more we can listen through all of our senses, not just hearing, right? Yep. Visual. Yep. That's the key. Yep. And so listening allows us to become more present, which allows us to get out of this performative state, right? Yep. And knowing that there isn't the goal. And you said, and I want to touch on something else you said, it's not about me giving a woman an orgasm. We're creating an orgasm together. We're creating sexual pleasure together. We're creating connectivity together. If an orgasm happens, lovely. That's awesome. If it doesn't happen, that's okay too. So this concept of like goal-oriented sex.
Perfect.
Yes, it would be nice if you knew skills and techniques to be able to elevate a woman to get into her arousal state so she can achieve an orgasm. But she's just as responsible for her own connectivity with her own body, right? Of understanding what makes her tick, so that you can do it and she can guide you together. It's another thing I find is that when women don't know how to guide a man in the experience of like, here, there, oh, that feels good, like, that helps us a lot. Because, navigating a woman's body is actually quite hard. It's one of the most difficult things to do. I tell guys this all the time, like, trust me, going down on a girl and figuring out how to do all that stuff is probably one of the most difficult things to do in our sexual experiences. It's very hard. You got to do multiple things at the same time. You have to listen, you have to use your tongue, you have to use your fingers, you have to pay attention, you have to whatever. There's a lot going on. It's like rubbing, so like there's a lot that we have to do in those experiences, but it's joint and it involves the other. And the more connected you are with the partner, the more present you are, the more you are able to listen, then your experiences become better and better and better. And also the communication piece is key. So
Totally.
yeah.
And you mentioned the doing part again, which is the strategy side. And I love that you're really addressing that. It's like, okay, I'm not trying to get rid of the strategy side, but from a woman's perspective, there is, when you talk about presence, there is this experience of wanting what you're doing, right? Like being with what you're doing instead of, again, just making it this to-do list, right? So if you're stimulating here and you're touching here, it's like, again, not to be just as goal oriented, but to also be like actually present within your fingers or actually present. It's like there is a connect, because that's where the connection really happens, right? Because we can feel when you're in your head versus not. Give me women have this stereotype of we obviously are very positive charged in our chest, right? Like there's this idea of like romance and love and emotion, and we're playing dolls and we're playing house and we're talking about how the prince is going to come and we're going to be loved, and there's just all this like love emotion feeling happening. And for men, correct me if I'm wrong, right, when they're in their sexual centers and they're in those spaces, do you find that it's hard for them to connect the two, right? To be in love, to be in connection versus, and they can be one and the same, I get that, but like address the romance side of things for men versus women, because again, women are reading and watching and feeling, and they're already characterizing what they want, and a lot of it is this romance idea of I really do want that presence. I want someone to see me. I want someone to speak to me, sometimes direct, because that's also fun, right? I think we got to be careful about saying women don't love that, like
No,
they can want that too, right? But the romance idea of this, what do you bump up against with that with men?
So again, I would say it's a good question. Because so the romance piece is like when you're asking me, like, when you're in love as a man and also then trying to be in these
Yes.
spaces? Like,
Yeah, because I find that there can be a block to that, right? There can be a block of like, okay, I'm in my primal, I'm in my sexual centers, I'm in my power, right? So you're starting to breathe some of that energy up and I'm feeling my power. But by the time I hit my heart, which is kind of that vulnerability, it is that I want to, talk about my emotions, or I want to confess my love, or whatever it is. Is that a disconnect for a lot of men? And again, I always feel like they don't have a lot of content when it comes to it. They just are like, again, this is
yeah,
like,
I can. I like the way that you sort of rephrase that, so I can dive into it. So,
yeah,
the answer is it's the most vulnerable place for a man to live.
yes,
Is when he is loved and in his vulnerability and present and depth. It's also the most powerful place where he can be. It's also the most scary place where he can be, right? Because when a man fully commits, right, to be in partnership and really, really, really dive into that space, there's an element of like, not seeking other things, like I'm present, I'm with her, she's able to feel into all of me.
yeah,
It is a very, 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 how do I say, like, it's a very sensitive area, but it's also the place where we can find our most depth, right?
yes,
Because it doesn't mean we have to spill the beans and be overly gushy and all that sort of stuff. That's not what it's about. But it's about this very grounded understanding and presence of like, I love you and you are my person and I am here through this depth, right? And women feel that, you know what I
yeah,
mean? And being emotionally vulnerable, I would say, like, in my experiences, the best sexual experiences I've had is when I've been in love, when I've been with
exactly,
someone where it's like, really, really, really beautiful because I give that love through the sexual experience,
exactly,
right? In a way that you can't necessarily when you have a lover or you're intimate, whatever it is, like someone that's
sure,
not, you're really undressing yourself. I agree. There isn't a lot of language and teaching and support for men in that particular space.
yeah,
Where I focus the vast majority of my energy is just like, how do we get to the point where we can be healthy in our own
yeah,
energy? And
great
then
point.
once that's there, as you move through into partnership, then you can cultivate more of that. But I think that that's like that third stage masculine that David Data talks about, right? Which is like you have developed masculine energy, you have a developed feminine energy, and then you move into this third stage where you're able to embody both
Yes, beautiful.
But you do it in a way that is masculine, container driven, and leading, and you're not afraid to show up fully for
Yeah.
that partner,
Yeah.
right? Because you know that it's the best thing for you. Because that if you are in alignment with that partner and she is actually full support of you, she's able to she can like take that energy and then infuse it, and then like that creates and propels the partnership to be even stronger, and allows that man to be even more powerful in the world. That's my
Yep.
personal feeling, is that when
Totally.
there's that synergy, right?
Yep.
And you have both, that woman who's able to contain it, the man can basically cultivate that, and then he becomes even more of a powerful presence
Totally.
because he's
Yep.
seen, he's felt, and he's also, it's mirrored back.
Yeah,
So
beautiful. Love that. You have 4 pillars of, what do you call it? What are your 4 pillars? And let's give us a little bit of your roadmap of what you take people through.
you mean, oh, so when we coach,
Yeah.
I mean, the
Yeah.
first is like, the first is the mind, right? It's like men are mental creatures. So I start with where they're at. I don't get
Perfect.
into the feelings right away. We get into like, what is the mind? What are we trying to learn here? What can we
Yeah.
like use our brains to like analytical? Okay, I understand that. Oh, interesting, right?
Yeah.
So it's about the mind, and it's about,
Yeah.
are you addicted and a slave to your lust and your those types of desires, and what can we do to create better patterns? Who are you as a man, right? We talk about high value man. That's a term that gets thrown around a lot. What does that actually mean,
Beautiful.
right? It's
Yep.
it's a man who understands who he is in the world. He has opinions, he has thoughts, he has ways of being, he lives for himself in that sense.
Mm-hmm.
And then that energy permeates outward and it attracts a woman who is in alignment with that.
Yep.
Women want to be with a man who knows who the fuck he is,
Totally.
right? And that takes time. And when you're in your 20s and 30s, like it takes time to develop who you are,
Yeah.
you know? So that's the first part. And then obviously getting into the body. So understanding the body, understanding like if you have sexual function or sexual dysfunction issues because of your porn addiction. So they are kind of flows, right? So if you
Yes.
watch
Yeah.
porn, you're not connected to your body in a meaningful way. And so we focus on getting out of the porn and then getting in your body, understanding how you work, understanding what makes you tick, right? Getting into your felt sense, right? Like how do you do breathing exercises that get you into your cock, right?
Yeah.
Like how do we feel that? How do you do
Totally.
exercises that get you to create more dopamine naturally so you can stop watching, porn? And then understanding, your function, and then we get into understanding the female partner, right? So it's
Nice.
understanding, her dynamics, her cycles, foreplay, her body, right? Like if a man doesn't understand that a woman has 4 very different parts of the month and that she needs to be treated differently in those situations, which 98% of men don't understand,
Totally. Yep.
we're at a disadvantage, right?
Yeah.
So my whole thing is like it's like sex hacking, right? Like how do you actually figure out what your partner needs in that moment so that you can be the most efficient with how you act, how you speak, right? And giving her what it is that she is going to need so that you get the best response.
Yeah.
That's like I tell guys, I'm like, it's actually just like we're just. It's almost like I mean, men understand that like we're hacking the system. So when she's in her
Yeah.
ovulatory phase, she's going to need different sex, different communication, different this. I tell guys, get on her app, like understand where she's at, right? Make notes,
Yeah.
pay attention, because
Yeah.
she is not us. Men are not women. We have a very different hormonal cycle, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so
Totally.
so it's the it's the sex education that we never had in school.
Yeah.
Oh, a woman has 4 parts to her cycle. Cool and interesting. Like a woman like takes 45 minutes to like really engage. Maybe less when she's ovulating. Good to know. Maybe she needs fast and quick because she's like on it and she's more testosterone in her body that part of the month.
Yeah.
All these little things, are
Yeah.
so important. So we get into teaching the guys about that. And then obviously the more advanced stuff is like the presence, the embodiment, the advanced
Yeah.
techniques, to help guys when they are in those situations to have more things that they can do and try and explore
Yeah.
that could potentially work, with their partner.
So I hear the saying a lot that a man needs to hold the space, the container for a woman, right? They need to hold like the polarization idea of where a man should be versus where a woman should be. And I've had this conversation with a lot of women, and maybe this is a little bit more advanced, but tell me your thoughts on does the ego get a hold of that? And are you able to be present with a woman, right? Like, I want someone to be with me. I don't want somebody to, like, necessarily just hold the space because I'm acting crazy or I have this, like, whatever it is. It's like, do you have the capacity to, like, actually be with me, right? Be present with me. Do you find that there is, like, again, does the ego get a hold of that, or what's your belief on holding space for a woman?
So I actually think that you do need a man to just be with you sometimes, right?
Yeah.
Like, when you are going through a process, right, of
Yeah.
emotional disconnectivity, like lack of trust, lack of this, like where your man isn't being something that you feel trustworthy in,
Sure.
that probably is going to create some sort of acting out from you, right? It's
Yeah.
not rational, but it's just what
Sure.
happened.
Yeah.
And
All of a
so,
sudden, you're talking to my 10-year-old self.
right. And so when we talk about like holding space and leading, like if men are trying to de-rationalize you or to like analyze and analysis paralysis you, fail,
Yeah.
immediate fail. That's not what you
Yeah.
need,
Yeah.
right? And so it's less talking, it's more presence.
Yeah.
It's allowing for you to go through your process because in those moments, and I'm just like, you don't know what you want. You're having an experience of, I don't feel X, safe, right? I feel anxious, I feel this, I feel that. And you're going through a process and your partner
Yeah.
is the mirror, so you're going to take it out on them or whatever it is,
Yeah.
right? So it's like, and as a man, it is important that we know that it's not personal, right? Which is very hard because when a
Sure.
woman who we love is
Yeah.
throwing some shit at us, it's difficult for us
Exactly.
to be like, okay, like Wusa, like what is this coming from, right? And is this really about me or is it about something that I have no control over? But how can I
Yeah.
be in this space for her? And it's about embodying and it's about having a strong central nervous system, right?
Hmm.
Because like if a
Yep.
man can be in this space and not feel a threat from
Yes.
you when you're in
Yes.
that moment, he's able to ground in,
Yep.
joke it off with humor, physicality, whatever it is that kind of, that partnership works, right? Whatever it is
Yeah.
that she
Yeah.
needs, whatever
Exactly.
her love language is. But I do believe that women do need a container sometimes, and sometimes that container is more like I need to be told when I'm out of line. I need to be
Sure.
told when I've crossed a boundary, because I think that women do they push the envelope a little bit. Oh, where can I go? How can I go? Does he have what it takes
Totally.
to
Yep.
maintain? Women always are testing, consciously, subconsciously, mostly
Yep.
subconsciously. So I think it's about men being able to really dive in and regulate their nervous system in moments of stress when they are being attacked or in these situations from
Yep.
their female partner who is having an experience of I don't trust this man at this moment right now. Doesn't mean that you
Yep.
don't have a history together. Doesn't mean that you won't trust him in 2 years. But just
Right.
in this moment, something is
Yeah.
happening. And that again, it's very, very difficult to teach because it's like, how do you get a man to be more and more comfortable with his central nervous system in moments of threat?
Yeah.
Breath work,
And
embodying.
having the emotions not be a threat, to your point. It's like put up a mirror of a woman like freaking out in this emotion or that emotion, whatever it is, and what it triggers inside of you is a really great practice of like, okay, what happens, like what is an attack, right? And can you be comfortable with really big emotions? Because the beautiful part about that is, right, is if I start to stir up all that emotion and I've got waves going on and whatever it is, that is, if you take that energy into sexual experiences or into connection, whatever it is, you've got way more energy to actually play with, right? So it's a really, again, if we're constantly saying, I'm uncomfortable with your emotion, or that's a threat, you're really shutting down the very gift and the very energy of what the exchange really can be. And so being comfortable with emotion is such a huge part of that, I feel like, don't you?
Yeah. No, it's true.
Yeah.
And it's probably the most difficult thing in partnership, and it creates the most issues because men, if they get defensive, they get mopey, they get, combative.
Yeah.
Those are all the wrong things to do in those moments,
Yeah.
right? And it takes practice of getting
Yep.
it wrong a number of times to be like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
cool. Like, I need to actually be really grounded and not take this
Yeah.
personally, not take offense to it, not get defensive because there's a lot of crazy stuff that gets thrown out in those conversations. A lot of it
Sure.
isn't actually real. It's
Yeah.
just like, can he handle this? Can he handle this? Right? I mean, that's kind of what happens, and it's not
Yeah, it
like,
can be.
yeah, and sometimes it's very real. But like, is a man able to, it's okay to be angry and to whatever, but like, can he hold the space of this is an experience that's happening? right? Let me
Yeah.
like, in an exercise, it's like, let me actually zoom out and watch this experience happen,
Yeah.
right? It's super hard to do when you're in it because you're getting yelled at or screamed at or whatever, right? Or like challenged at your core
Yep.
of like who you are as a man.
Yeah.
It's difficult, you know? It's difficult for us
Well, and I
because yeah.
Well, I tell couples all the time, it's like if you can start to practice how attractive it is, right? Like it's super hot when a woman's really passionate about whatever she's passionate about. It doesn't even matter, right? But that those all those different vibrations of energy and emotion, when you can realize like you're attracted to whatever space that she's in, and vice versa, it alleviates the idea of like I'm not in the mood, right? It's the idea of like I have to be in this state to again to perform whatever it is, and you miss out on so many opportunities to be in what is, right? It's that present moment idea, but the emotion is, I think, a really big, to your point, threat that a lot of men have, but I think they're really missing so many pathways and connection to, to be connected with a woman, and being very attracted to those emotions is a practice, and it depends on their upbringing and everything else. But
Yeah.
as you're doing this work, people can work with you one-on-one. Give me an idea of how people can connect to you. And again, you've got so much great content going out, and
Thank you.
it's a massive gift and value to anybody that is, so first and foremost, follow you is what I would say. And then from there, give me an idea of how people can get in touch with you.
Yeah, thank you. So social media is the best way to just learn and get a lot of free content and engagement.
Yeah.
Obviously, we can only fit a certain amount into 60 or 90 seconds.
Yeah.
But if you have a deeper desire, right, to engage, one is that we can actually have a call, like you do 1 hour consults. I do one-to-one coaching for men, for women, and for couples. And that's usually
Nice.
like a 3 or 4 month container where like I'm working with you and we're diving in deep.
Nice.
And then for men, obviously, the app is sort of like this digital offer and this engagement, this dynamic gamified piece, which will be available in the App Store very shortly. We just did our pre-sale launch, which was great. I will probably be putting out an app for women as well. And I would say that like my audience, it's interesting. So I have
I was going to ask
offers
you
to
about that.
men
I'm
right
glad
now.
you're going into it. Yeah.
I have offers to men right now. I have, supplements for men in the United States. I have the digital app, which is for men globally. I'm going to be creating over the next like 6 months, creating really like products, offers, things like that for women because I know that women are really hungry. They're hungry to understand their men. They're hungry to understand how to communicate with their men. They're hungry to understand, how to be better at this stuff. And so that's something that's going to be in the pipeline. But,
Right.
people want to communicate with me if they want to consult to really dive into a subject. That's easy. But I also, I coach women. I don't coach you about your body, but I coach you about the experiences that you're having and the
Right.
relational aspects that you're having. And, that stuff
Right.
is very important. So I want
Yeah.
women to feel totally comfortable reaching out for that because the natural growth of the business is to continue to expand, to continue to touch
Yeah.
more people around the world, but also to offer things for women to really dive into to help them in their
Yeah.
relationships.
And subconsciously, like you say, the hunger that women have, I think coming from a male presence, right, is there's subconsciously there's so much alchemy that happens in that, right? It's like when they can work with you. You did mention what your target, who you were, who followed you. So do you have a lot of women that actually like what is your engagement with men and women?
Yeah, so
I
interesting.
assume that a lot of women follow you.
A lot of women follow me, yeah. It's
Yeah.
platform differences on platforms. Facebook, it's 70% women. TikTok,
Okay.
it's I think 68% women.
Okay.
Instagram, it's 65% men. So there's a lot of women that follow, and the age ranges are usually 25 to 45 years old.
Okay.
So what I'm finding is that I think, just being super candid, women are much more open-minded to
Yeah.
learning and growing in this particular area. Men have a tough time admitting that they want to learn about these things, and I would encourage all men like lose it, and like the quicker you can lose that and drive in, the
Yeah.
quicker you can lose that ego shit and drop in, the faster you're going to elevate, right? But it takes a man being like, cool, I want to learn some stuff, and like this
And
is
it's
a guy that I
effective
think,
everywhere. Like it's so
yeah,
important. I feel like for men to realize that, right? Like that what you're asking them to do is not just about relationship and women. It's like that ego is actually blocking you from every next step, whatever it is, right? Like to elevate. So I love that you're
yeah,
mentioning that.
yeah. And I'm it's interesting. I'm shocked that more men don't follow. And
Yeah.
so I'm in an inquiry with my team right now, like, well, most of the content is targeted at men. Are they afraid to follow? Are they scared? Are they in denial? Are they not really like knowing that they're you have to be problem aware before you
Sure.
become solution aware. Do they know
Yeah.
that there's a problem? Do they understand how bad porn is? Do they understand how they don't know how to engage with women, in that intimate way? So, over the next 6 months, I'm going to be creating different types of content for different platforms to really see and test different things out to
Oh,
see
nice.
what are the main drivers and the models, for more further engagement. Because I
Yeah.
really want to support men. I also know that the women are they're the ones that are the most receptive. They're the ones that
Yeah.
are the most open. They're the ones that are forward thinking in that space because that's just how they are. They have the nurturing compassion, the desire to learn and desire to
Again, we're
grow.
playing
They
house
don't,
very early on.
yeah, and they don't have the ego associated with it.
No.
So like, it's not like this, like, oh, I have to be good and I have to do this as a guy and blah blah blah. Like the women don't have that. They're just like, cool, I want to learn. Like, let's learn, let's
Wow.
broaden. And they're more communal. And so and I'm super excited. So I want to. I'm going to be doing more engagement with women in terms of like lives, group coaching, group platforms, things like that, because there's so much engagement and there's so much hunger that I've
Good.
experienced from women, and I'm excited. Like I want to dive in.
Well, and so many women can create that safe space to introduce and invite men into this space. So any of the women listening, the frustration can also come with a woman to say that there isn't resources out there for a man to actually have, right? And that's why I say I thank you on behalf of women as well, because that is also their job to be able to invite whoever they want into this space and say, hey, like there really is somebody out there that is really educating on this, which is huge.
Yeah.
So I can
I
see
get
where,
one really interesting note that I'd love to share is, women
yeah,
ask me like, what's the best way to engage my partner or share with my partner, like your
perfect.
content?
Yeah.
And I say like, look, there's a very, very small window of opportunity. If you go about it the wrong way, then he's not going to be engaged and he's going to shut down. If you go about it the right way, he'll be engaged. So it's like you compliment him on something that he does very well, and you show him the content. It's like, oh, you do this so good, and you stroke his ego, and you get him like feeling confident, right? And like maybe there's a ton of work that needs to get done, but that's not the point.
Sure.
But then how do you bring it? And then the next comment is like, oh, I'd love to, like, did you watch this? I'd love to try this, or I'd love to explore that, or what are your thoughts about that? You have to bring someone into this slowly, and it's like, this is a team. This is about us, right? Not
Yeah.
about like, you're not doing good. Watch this person. That is going to shut a man down immediately.
Well,
Immediately.
and that I love that you're adding this in, because again, if that's how you're approaching any conversation in a relationship, it's really important to watch how quickly that defense and that shutdown actually happens, because the second I'm not good enough, right? Like that's, you've already shut the door. So I love that you're bringing that up, because again, it's in every conversation that needs to happen if we keep things open like that. So spot on.
Yeah.
And then also finding out what they want, right? The idea is like, what's your desires? Do you want more of this? Like, do we want more of this? It's not just about giving me what I want, right? The idea is like, don't we want this, or what do
Yeah,
you
and
want?
the women need to ask the men, what is it
Yeah,
that they're interested in?
exactly.
What
Yeah,
makes them tick? Don't be
yeah,
afraid to get into that because a lot of men, we sort of have this lonely. It's like, is anyone inquiring with us
yeah,
about what we love?
yeah,
Right? We're just supposed to sort of like know what to do and provide all these things, but like, why don't we ever get the inquiry? So women, as long as it's done in a very compassionate, connective way, where it's this we mentality,
yeah,
you know, inquire, like allow us to share what it is that our desires, needs, wants
yeah,
are without judgment, because our desires and needs may be something that you have never thought of before, never
yeah,
considered before. What turns us on, again, we're different creatures. We're visually stimulated creatures, men, for the most part.
yeah.
So you might be surprised at the answer. So as long as you have a non-judgmental frame, that's super important.
Well, and staying curious, is the key to all communication in such a huge way. And
Yeah.
I think what a lot of men and women will find, we are talking about how different we are, and that is true. And I would like to add, right, that I coach a lot of men as well, and what I find a lot of men are really craving is some of this more emotional space and the permission to be able to, it's like, I have to be a man and I have to be strong and I have to hold all these things. And like, there's a lot of expectation around that men are also, I find, getting really tired of, to your point, just like only being put in this one box as well, right? Like, so
Yeah.
creating a safe container for a man to really lean into his emotion, lean into his, what do I want to say, his senses, right? Like being more sensual, like really saying, okay, like, how does that taste? What does that feel like? There's so many pathways into your senses that make you sensitive, right? That allows for a greater experience in everything. So yeah, I find a lot
Yeah.
of men are coming in equally unsatisfied with not being able to go deeper and not having the permission to experience their emotion because they've been shutting that down their whole life, which is a big
Right.
part of that.
Right. Men, I think, are afraid to do that because they will be seen as weak, or they will
Yeah.
think that it's going to be used against them in the future.
Yes. Yeah.
Those are real. That's real.
It
Like, you
is.
look at
Yeah.
what happens in divorces, like, it's real. Women
Yeah.
have an ability to manipulate emotions in ways that men don't understand. So, like, there is that element of like, well, if I share, and if I really get, into the situation with this person, am I safe?
Yeah.
Like, are we safe? And a man also needs to understand how to share and when to share and when to not overshare. The burden of being a man is that we don't have the ability, I believe, we shouldn't be sharing as many things as we think that we should, but we should have the ability to share some things in very specific ways. I think that there's an ability for us to learn how to do that well, so that we're not oversharing.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I want to poke at that bad.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think that we as men, our burdens are different, right? And the expectations that are put on us, regardless of our situation, is that we should be confident, strong, capable in these situations. Sharing our emotions doesn't mean that we're not, but we don't want it to be used against us. And so if we are oversharing, right, and then it just becomes this like, all the time, where we don't have the resolve to say like, okay, cool, I shared my thing, and then like, let's put it to rest and let's move on. But where I'm at, right? There's just in a way that we can share, which is going to be much more receptive to, I think, a woman who does want a strong, capable leading partner, right?
Sure.
So there's a lot of, and this is something that's very, very advanced, of just like
Yeah, I
how
was gonna say.
men share and communicate
Yeah.
their feelings, their emotions, their vulnerabilities with their partner so that they feel safe, heard, but also that they maintain the information that's like, they share exactly what's needed to be shared, but they may not need to share everything, you know? And that's just, I think that it creates, it
So
still maintains the
give me an
polarity.
example of oversharing. What do you mean by that?
When we have to go into explaining or justifying, how we feel about something, you know, I do believe that a man should be able to explain and share his emotions and feelings in a very concise manner. He doesn't need
Yeah.
to justify, he doesn't need to explain, he doesn't need to, get into it all that much. But like, he needs to share where he's at. And to
Yeah.
me, like, after he shares, that's it, right? And the more we get into the talking and the explaining and the this and that, I don't think that it's necessary. I don't think it's helpful at all. I mean,
Okay.
this is a much longer conversation,
It
but
is. It totally is.
yeah,
Because what creates safety in a relationship or within the context of safety gets interesting, right? Because to me, how I define safety is honesty, right? Like as long as you're honest, and you let me into those spaces, right? That creates safety for me. Holding back or not sharing to me immediately already starts to create this like idea of like, okay, well, what are you not saying? And why are you not saying that? And so I'm already getting suspicious the second you're like holding back. Again, that might be a me thing. But like honesty, and then the weaponizing is interesting. And again, we're moving into spaces that might be a little bit more advanced. But the weaponizing, to me, it's like, okay, in partnership, if somebody starts to weaponize your emotions or your whatever it is, I think that's a bigger issue, right? Like I think that's something that like needs to be looked at on a different scale, not
oh,
as
for sure.
as we shouldn't do that because it can be weaponized. I think any individual that's going to do that, I think there's a bigger problem there in your relationship than just sharing.
1,000%. It does happen though. And
It
I
does
think that's
happen.
one of the men's biggest fears is that it's not that like I'm gonna, be seen as weak or vulnerable. It's more like, you know, I want to share how I feel so that my partner knows how I feel. And that's sort of like, it doesn't mean that I'm not being honest, but it doesn't
Sure.
mean we need to like belabor it and like expound on it and like it should just be known. Here's where I'm at, you know? Anyway, this is
I,
different conversation.
yeah, it totally
But it's
is.
not being honest. It's just
Oh, I
not
hear
being
you.
like verbose and like dragging something on, like because that to me is not actually creating the masculine polarity that we need. She should know how you feel, but it should be contained in a very specific way so that she understands that you feel expressed and then you move on, you know?
Yeah. Love it. We'll have to play with that a little bit more
Yeah,
because there's some nuances there that would be fun
of
to
course.
explore.
Yeah, it's very
Um,
contextual.
so again, downloading your app is a massive part of this. Following you on social media, I'm just going to reiterate that I really do feel like, and I'm going to shoot this from the rooftops. There is a massive green light for you, and
Thank you.
and I do feel like all those pathways. Are ready to be open. People are ready. They've been prepared for this space. You clearly have been prepared for this space for years. And getting that feedback of, from that woman was divinely orchestrated in such a big way. And for your response to that it says so much about your character. And so I love the work that you're doing. It's so crucial. And again, this is not just about sex. This is not just about performance. This is about the way you do life is and practicing it in this very intimate, vulnerable space is one of the most powerful things that you can do. So going down this road with you, in my opinion, I agree with you. I think if this was the number one focus for men and women specifically, the amount of healing, the amount of power, the amount of evolution that would happen is huge. So I agree with you. I think this is the number one thing that everybody should focus on because it touches everything in life. So I really honor and respect what you're doing. So thank you so much. And thank you for this conversation.
Yes, thank you, Tanya. This has been amazing. You ask
Yeah.
great questions and I appreciate your green light and like the
Yeah.
energy that you put around what it is that I'm doing. And obviously the work that you're doing is like it's very much in alignment. Like how do
Yeah.
we create more harmonious experiences and relational skill sets, so we can live better lives, So
Exactly.
I greatly appreciate it. I'm so happy that you asked me to be your guest.
Yeah.
Um,
Thank
and
you.
yeah,
And we'll share it with everybody who's ready, which is going to be a lot. So thank you.
beautiful.
Okay, we'll see you.
All right.